My guest, Dr. Matthew Jones, practiced as an orthopedic surgeon for a decade after completing his residency in orthopedic surgery at the University of Arizona in 2011 and a sports medicine fellowship at UCLA in 2012. In 2021, inspired by a road trip with Corvette enthusiasts during which finding a trailer proved difficult, he made the bold decision to pivot from medicine to full time entrepreneurship, a move that was both exhilarating and daunting. His company, Towlos, was founded in 2022 as a peer to peer trailer sharing marketplace that connects owners of trailers, such as car haulers, boat trailers, and enclosed trailers, with renters of trailers across the U.S. During our conversation, Matt explains what motivated him to leave medicine and start his company, the personal traits as a surgeon that translate to being a successful company founder, and how he overcame the challenges he faced during the process. He also tells us about his company and where it will be going next. Be sure to listen to the entire interview today because at the end, I will share a special offer that Matt has created just for listeners and viewers. All right, let's get to it. I really enjoy talking to physician entrepreneurs. Today's guest is a great one because he recognized that an opportunity existed to solve a very specific problem that apparently had been completely ignored. So I'm really excited to talk to the guest today. Dr. Matt Jones, welcome to the PNC podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I think I find it extremely interesting when physicians kind of take a left turn or a right turn or something and just move into something different because they're inspired. So that's kind of what I don't know exactly what you've done in detail. So we're going to learn about that. But just to get started, tell us a little bit about your medical training and background, and then we'll get into this other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I took a U-turn, so we'll talk about it. But yeah, Matt Jones. Like to tell people that I'm a recovering orthopedic surgeon and now a starving entrepreneur.
Oh boy.
Uh, yeah, that's becoming a thing of the past. That was more of a reality probably 2 years ago. And so we're moving along, but I'm an orthopedic surgeon by training. I did a fellowship in sports medicine at UCLA and then went on to practice medicine for 10 years.
Okay. Did I see that you were in the Midwest for a while?
Yeah, that's right. So I went to medical school at Wright State, which is in Dayton, Ohio, and then orthopedic uh, residency took me to Arizona and Tucson, and then fellowship at UCLA, and then I practiced at Northwestern Medicine in Chicago for a number of years.
Okay. I think I've had patients go up there to maybe not, I don't know, maybe they have seen you or someone else in your group because I'm about an
Okay.
hour south of Chicago. So
Okay.
former
Yes, I think
local.
the yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah.
All right. So, but just now let's segue into something that is completely different from that. So, what happened? We'll just lay out the story of how you got
Yeah.
interested in doing something else.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I started medical school in 2002. And as we all know, it takes a long time to get through training. And so by the time uh, uh, 2013 came around, that was a lot had changed. At least I think,
Mm-hmm.
just over that decade. Um, and as we know too, when we're 18, when we're 20, when we're 22, entering medical school, um, you don't exactly know what you're getting into, but you make a commitment and you
Right.
follow through and you put your head down, and that's exactly what I did, and I'm sure that's exactly what all of the listeners have done, right? And so I feel like you um and you have to commit to it. I like to think that we don't have to be the smartest people in the room, but we have to be the people with grit, the most grit.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can, as long as we commit ourselves to it, we can kind of, we can be okay. And that was exactly my story. And then you kind of wake up at the end of fellowship and you get into practice, and um at least in my opinion, and I'd love to know your thoughts here too, John, is like that for me, it seemed like that decade in the 2010s and it extending into the the years from 2010 to 2020, it seemed like medicine changed a lot over those few years. And so what I thought what I might be doing just it didn't seem to correlate, at least in my mind. And it's certainly it's very I think it's very possible. I think it's probably a combination of me not exactly knowing what I was getting myself into, and then also the fact that things changed quite a bit.
No, I mean, I lived through a lot of that, and I was working even as a CMO at a hospital for a while, and everything was changing, Medicare rules, and they were clamping down, they were reducing, reimbursements, they were making it harder and harder, the insurance companies to get paid, and it was
Sure.
just a huge change. And the other thing was that I always have mentioned in the past is that when you think about it, basically, when we decide to become a physician, we're basically a child. We're a teenager. Some even make that decision when they're 5 years old,
Right.
and the reality does not match by any means the fantasy that we may have. But it's the way it is. And you make a commitment, and then if it works out, fine. But there's nothing to say you have to do that the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and so and I'll be the first to admit that I mean I realize I'm a bit biased, but I think orthopedic surgery is probably one of the best specialties within medicine. So I recognize that I had it better than most. My wife is an internist,
Okay.
and then she did a primary care sports fellowship. We met at UCLA, so we were both fellows. She was doing primary care sports, and I was doing ortho sports.
Nice.
And uh and so I kind of have watched her journey, for the last I guess it's been 13 years or so, and I just watch her grind
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard. And so I mean I have so much respect um for all the physicians out there, especially the primary care docs that are just giving of themselves. I mean, I was just talking to my wife this morning, actually. She was telling me about, she on one of her days off, she went ahead and did a telehealth with some patient that I think was kind of suffering and was kind of needing some help and advice. And no good deed goes unpunished, right? Because then she's gotten I think 6 or 7 my chart messages after that uh after
Yeah.
that interaction, kind of working through stuff. And so I really have a lot of respect for any physician, partly based on my own experience and then partly by observing my wife's experience.
It's amazing to me though. There's some people that have been in practice 30, 40 years and they don't look like they ever want to stop. And
Yeah.
I don't get it, but it's good to have those people around.
Absolutely. Yeah, we need them. Yeah, exactly. I think also, I mean, again, I realize that I'm probably talking to a friendly audience here, but I also feel that you should not feel that you have to be stuck. Like, I think there's such investment, whether it's time or whether it's hundreds of thousands of dollars for many of us, that you've invested into this career, and man, there is a high bar to saying I'm going to look at something else. I mean, I remember personally when I brought that up with my uh future father-in-law, that was not a great conversation.
Oh no, I can
Oh
imagine.
man.
But look at you've been successful at one thing, you're going to be successful at other things. I've not heard anyone that left medicine, they ended up on Skid Row or something. So all right, so you had some hobbies or something going on that you were interested in, which not only were you kind of unhappy with ortho, but now maybe this thing has started to call to you. So tell
Sure.
us how that happened
Yeah,
and what.
exactly. I mean, I'm going to blame some of this on COVID. For most of, there's a lot of bad things that happened as a result of COVID. But if you really kind of, as I've reflected back on it over the last few years, there's a lot of interesting good things. I mean, I think one of them has been the ability to do what we're doing right now and have these video podcasts, over Zoom and being able to, connect with patients and stuff. So that was something that was certainly stimulated. So. COVID came around. I'm what, I'm probably a little bit of a stereotypic orthopedic surgeon where I enjoy doing kind of crazy stuff. And one of my hobbies was um, driving a sports car on the racetrack.
Mm,
And at first, I I just this is a little bit nerdy, so I'll go quickly here, but I was looking for a naturally aspirated engine, which means no turbochargers, no superchargers, and then a manual gearbox. I wanted to be able to
Okay.
shift through the gears myself because both of those things are going the way of the dinosaur. I mean, let alone the skill of driving, but
Right.
certainly an engine that does not have a turbocharger, a naturally aspirated engine, and then just a manual gearbox. I think I have I think I have a t-shirt that shows one of those shifters, a manual gearbox, and I think it says anti-theft device.
That's that's
Right.
that's a good one. Yeah.
And so I got into that right around COVID because I was miserable like most of us were, and I was kind of looking for an outlet, and then you know how it is, you always meet a buddy. You always need a buddy, right? And so I
Mhm.
I met a buddy named Trent, and he was like, "Hey, do you ever take your car to the track?" And I was like, "No way." That made no that didn't I mean, I guess I was nervous. I was scared about that. So sure enough, you have a buddy and he gives you the confidence, he kind of helps guide you, right?
Mhm.
And so we were living in Chicago at the time, and so we were able to drive our cars up to Road America, which is an iconic racetrack up in Wisconsin. You can just drive there. It was about 2 hours away. We loved that, great experience. And you know how it is. You kind of get a bug, and then you're like, okay, let's find other iconic racetracks. We wanted to be able to get farther and farther from home. We wanted to be able to go to racetracks that were farther from home, and we quickly recognized that, hey, there's a real danger that we might be stranded there if something breaks.
Oh
You
yeah.
blow a tire or something mechanical breaks, right, or something, or God forbid, you go off the road or something, you get stuck or whatever. And so we were like, okay, let's just rent a trailer. Let's rent a car hauler. And this was 2021, and it was surprisingly hard. I think it was way harder than it should be. And so we ended up actually buying a trailer. My buddy and I, Trent, bought a trailer because we couldn't find the right one to rent, so we actually just bought one. And then that's what kind of started the wheels turning of, I wonder if there's something here. I mean, we needed the right trailer. Does this happen in other industries? So we kind of looked into ATVs, we looked into snowmobiles, we looked into power sports like boats and then we looked into horses and we started talking to people who were in the equestrian world. This is not really a world that I know much about, but we started learning that, oh yeah, there's people all the time that right now they just borrow their friend's horse trailer to get to competitions all across the country. And so we I think quickly recognize that there is a real need
Mm.
uh, to allow people to kind of unlock opportunity, unlock fun, unlock adventure. And one of the things that's holding them back is the right trailer. And it sounds really quirky and weird, until you actually dive into it. And it turns out that's a $4+ billion industry in the US.
Mm.
You know, I would have guessed, maybe a billion, maybe 500,000, I mean, 500 million, something like that. And it was actually a much larger market than we expected. And then we start talking to people on the other side that own trailers and ask them, how often do you use those? And the answer was always the same, 2 to 4 weekends a year.
Mm.
Okay, what do you do with
Yes.
that trailer the rest of the time, right? Oh, it
Hmm.
just sits there and my wife yells at me.
It looks bad in the
Yeah, exactly.
driveway or
I got to
takes
pay
up half the
storage fees.
garage.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Because people always have their sports car, they always have their horse, they always have their race car, they always have their ATV, right? Because that's the fun, that's the toy. But
Hmm.
what a lot of people don't have or don't want to own necessarily is the trailer. So
Hmm.
a
Okay.
little kind of slice of the world that not too many people know about that surprisingly is something there. So then we started our the kind of gears started turning as far as, hey, is there an opportunity here for this to be a peer-to-peer marketplace, a little bit following in the footsteps of Airbnb
Hmm.
or Turo? Turo, Turo is a peer-to-peer company that does car rentals. So, if
Mm.
I own a car, I use it whatever, 3 days a week, but I don't use it the other four. I can list it and rent it out and I can meet someone else's need, but also put some bucks in my pocket. So
Oh,
we kind of followed
interesting.
that model.
No, the Turo thing, I hadn't thought about this, but like if you own a second home, you have a car there that doesn't get driven half the year. I'm just thinking because my wife and I own a place in Scottsdale,
Okay.
I say, oh, I could
And do
rent
you
my
guys
car
leave a
out.
car there? Yeah. Do
Yeah,
you leave a
yeah.
car there? Yeah. Now, of course, the challenge, and they've done a good job of getting around this. Sometimes the challenge is the handoff. So if you're not physically present, how does that work? Well, there's this term called contactless rental, and Turo does that a lot, and we're here at Tolos, we've been working towards being able to allow for that too. And that's one of the beauties of technology. I mean, I'm a technology nerd. I love the way that technology, when applied correctly, can solve
Mhm.
problems and can help. I mean, it certainly happens in the health IT space all the time. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are kind of in that the overlap of technology and medicine, and I think that's a really fascinating space too. But I love the way that technology can really can handle maybe some of that mundane stuff and can kind of allow us to do the things that we as humans are enjoy doing.
Something else just popped in my head about that. I just realized that one of my kids goes online to find parking spots, to
Yes,
park their car rather than pay 15, $20. And I'm assuming that thing
Spot
is like,
Hero is probably
yes,
might be what
exactly. I
they.
don't know if that was out 10 years ago when you started thinking about these things or a few years ago.
Yeah,
But
I think it's
anyway,
been around for about 10 years or something. Uh-huh.
so
hmm
now you mentioned Tolos, right? That's the
hmm
company.
hmm
Okay,
Yep.
now where did that name come from? What does that mean? Tolos.
Right. So it's Towlos. Um I wanted to make up a word, right? Because when you make up a word, you can own its definition.
Mm-hmm.
Um and this was when I think I got a little bit lucky, John, because um I didn't do a lot of research on this, but for some reason I had this instinct that the company, it'd be great to make up a word. One, you increase the chances that the domain is available.
Right,
Uh,
for sure.
And then two, if you make up the word, then you can own its definition. And as that company evolves over time, because we all know as entrepreneurs, it is a meandering journey. You never go from point A to point B. You bounce as you're going to point B, right? And so I thought, okay, I don't know if I necessarily want to pick something that is very with a word that's very restrictive. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you can make up a word, then you can kind of own its definition, and that definition can evolve over time. So that was, I think I had four rules. So one was I wanted to make up a word. Two, I wanted it to be two syllables. I feel like many times you hear a name, especially let's say a word that's been made up. Your ears, I think, have a hard time sometimes picking up on it if it's just one syllable.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes a two-syllable word can stick in your brain a little bit better. Um, and then that was number two. Number three was I was really trying to get it to be six letters or less, just with, being able to fit on logos and even a URL and different things.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to
Nice.
be six letters or less. And then kind of the probably most important criteria was that it had to be had to be a domain that was available on GoDaddy or Namecheap or something, right? So
Right, right.
then we tried to say, okay, we started to filter those down. We started to come up with little words like that had hitch or tow or haul or something trailer related,
Yep.
in there to give it just a little bit of to give it a little bit of an anchor. And so I remember I think we were thinking of words like Hitchley or was it Holly or we went through a bunch of them and then landed on Tolos.
Okay. So you haven't attached anything to the Los part of it. It doesn't mean anything necessarily. It's
Nope,
just an extension of that
exactly.
three-letter word and
Yeah.
easy to
If so- if
remember.
somebody if somebody thinks of something clever, I'm all ears. So
Okay. And it's definitely at tolos.com, right? If that people want to
hmm
look it up.
that's right.
Okay. That's
hmm
cool. All right. So what do you think about physicians being entrepreneurs? I mean, it seemed like it was natural for you. Were you
Well,
being
no.
pushed away from medicine, like
Yeah.
you mentioned, or was it something that's just
Yeah.
like this thing I have to do because I'm an entrepreneur.
Well, I think as we talked about earlier, I mean, I think I felt a big pressure to say, hey, I invested all this time. I think also, I don't know if you guys if you talk about this too often, but I think the other thing is kind of that reputational, um I don't know what would be a good word, like the just the reputation. It's not harm, but the you I feel like you potentially suffer a little bit reputationally, right? Because this is a very respected profession. Um, and to walk away from that, I think those of us on the inside, I mean, it's amazing the polarizing reaction that I get, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners get when you talk when they, you know, when I talk to a doc and tell them, kind of my journey. I mean, almost immediately, without even me saying anything, they're almost jealous. And
Right.
then I
Yeah.
say that same thing. Give the same story to someone who's outside of medicine, and they look at me like I have three eyes,
Yep.
you know. And so
No,
that
that's true.
has that been your kind of
Oh yeah,
experience too?
you
Yeah.
can get all kind of guilt trips and people question it and even family, and it
Yes.
depends, and if you're in a long line of physicians, oh heavens, now you're really, you know, breaking the mold and
Yep.
doing something wrong. But, there's really everyone changes jobs. I mean, it doesn't happen as often maybe in medicine, but
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah. My so for about 5 years, and I didn't really recognize this at the time, but I guess my wife has told me this kind of in retrospect is that about probably 3 days a week, I would say something to the effect of, I'm not sure how much longer I can do this.
mm-hmm.
And I kind of left it at that. But I think I was like, there is no way I would do anything else. That thought, I think I made that comment, but then I had some cognitive dissonance where I think I didn't even realize that maybe there is actually something else out there. I thought at some point, and I did some consulting with Smith and Nephew and Stryker and some of these other medical devices within the
Mm-hmm.
ortho space where I helped, design some of the rotator cuff implants and the ACL fixation devices that we used. And that was there was real kind of intellectual outlet for me, and I really enjoyed that. And I just kind of thought maybe someday after I've been, working as an orthopod for 25 years, maybe I could, sunset a little bit and work as a consultant and help that, be a part of the innovation cycle. I think that was the extent of um, at least my outlook on where my career might go.
Mm-hmm.
But after saying I'm not sure much longer I can do this, my wife, I think, she probably just got sick of me saying that for 5 years. And then I did stumble across this the I got a Corvette. It's a 2018 Corvette Grand Sport for the car nerds out there. That's the naturally aspirated engine with a manual gearbox. I got that car, and then I was still doing ortho, and I ended up kind of starting Tolos as a little bit of a side hustle, and I
Mm,
ended up doing ortho and Tolos for about a year. Okay, so I was kind of doing both, but I really felt my legs kind of starting to do the splits, and it was kind of like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to do either one of these well.
mm-hmm.
Um, so it came a point where I needed it was a and it was a really hard decision. And I mean that was not an easy transition, right? I mean you were giving up a lot, um, and so that was a really hard decision. And I would say that I feel like probably the key thing for me was having a spouse who supported that decision.
Mm, that helps.
I think if you don't, I think you're introducing um, additional headwinds into something that's already hard.
So now are you pretty much devoting or at some point devoting full time to this or the
Yeah,
majority of your
so
time?
that was 3 years ago.
3 years?
Uh-huh. Yep. So my last surgery was December 18, 2021.
Got
Yep.
it.
So it's,
Wow.
4 years going on. So 22, 3, 4, and then so coming up almost 4 years.
So there was some planning involved, and you had to come up with a way to make this transaction work. So how long have you been able to actually market it and get customers and that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the website went live near the end of 22. So we've
Okay.
been operational for all of 23, 24. So, let's call it 2.5 years. Um, for me, this was an incredible pivot. So I wasn't that I was doing, some startup that was still within the medical space.
Right.
And so there was there was really no overlap when it came to the knowledge work. What I
Hmm.
realized a little bit in retrospect is there actually are a ton of parallels, I think, to being a startup founder to being a surgeon. And I'm happy to kind of go into a couple of those if you'd like,
Sure.
John.
Yeah. Do it.
Okay, so one I think is kind of just attention to detail.
Mm.
We have to, as surgeons, of course, we have to be very precise. I think that's probably both an inborn that's there already, that's there from the beginning. But I think that's also kind of beat into us over
Hmm.
residency and fellowship, and that's a very good thing, right? It's just attention to detail, and that there is I've realized that there's a significant overlap to that, and in as a startup founder, I mean, there's so many little details, and I think the successful ones have a significant attention to detail. I think another one that helped me a lot that I didn't recognize at first was just uh, performing under pressure. So, of
Mm.
course, in the OR, we talk about tourniquet time, we talk about anesthesia time, and you don't have the liberty of, kind of like solving a difficult problem and have plenty of time.
Hmm.
You have to be able to kind of think through your algorithm. I had a plan A, and now we're on to plan B, but then, okay, what's plan C? And you have to be able to kind of quickly pivot and make decisions. I mean, uh, sadly, I think I worked with some surgeons, fortunately not too many, who I think struggled with that a little bit, where they were indecisive, and
Mm.
that is just, in the operating room, and that is hopefully not deadly, but that's not a great character trait. And so, being able to perform under pressure certainly applies to being a startup founder. The other thing that might be a little bit more obvious is that grit and the resilience that I think
Hmm.
we all, I think anyone who survives medical school, survives residency, they have a certain amount of grit. They have a certain amount of resilience. Otherwise, you just don't make it. And that same character trait applies to being an entrepreneur as well.
Very interesting. As you were talking about the attention to detail and, everything is done kind of in an order, it kind of made me think that, like standard operating procedures in the OR for the nurses, for everybody there, that would be very applicable to a business, where
Yes,
everyone has their role and here's what we're supposed to do and do it in the right order and all that kind of thing.
agree. Yeah. Yeah, and being able to kind of inspire a team, right? You
Yeah.
know, you have to be able to do that in the OR, of course. There's anesthesia, there's scrub nurses, there's the you know, there's a lot of individuals, and you're all working towards the same goal. And if you're as a surgeon, if I think typically you're kind of the designated leader of that environment, and if you can inspire your team to work towards the same goal, I think that's an incredibly important skill. And you're right, I think that really applies to being able to build a small team as an entrepreneur.
Now you had a partner, and when this whole thing started, from what I understand, what you told me earlier. Now, do you have a partner now? Is this run by you, by two people? What's the team look like?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, so I think you're mentioning maybe you're referring to my buddy Trent. He
Right.
didn't he was my buddy in the Corvette and the racing world, but he was a big inspiration for kind of the concept, but I basically ran with it on my own. And so
Okay.
I was the sole founder, and I was a solopreneur for 2 years. I mean, it isn't I think this is where I was kind of headed, John, which is it was an incredible professional and personal journey for me, going from, just medicine, being very good at a very small slice of the world, and then having to really kind of reset. So, I was a solopreneur for about 2 years, and then I started building a team, and so now I have a co-founder named Jeff. He's our chief marketing officer. And then there's our social media manager, Maggie. So right now, there's the kind of the core three of us that are actually kind of Tolos employees. And then we have a ring of about 13 consultants that work for us, not quite full time, but whether it's our fractional CFO team, our legal team, our web dev team. So there's about 13 additional ones that are kind of maybe not quite employed by Tolos, but are certainly driving us forward.
That's pretty cool. Is tech a big part of this other than, let's say, a website or something? Is there tech
Yes,
involved in
absolutely.
doing this?
We think of ourselves first as a technology company and second
Okay.
as a trailer rental company, right? So we see, um, and most founders are a little bit quirky, and I think I follow that same pattern. But and so sometimes we have some quirky beliefs that may or may not be true. But one of the beliefs that I have is that in 10 years, um, everything that moves will be autonomous if
Yeah.
if there is desire for that to be autonomous. So what I mean by that is if you think about, we already see vacuum cleaners at home, right? What's
Right.
the name of those little
Robots.
guys? Yeah,
Roomba.
yeah, exactly. So those are operating independently, autonomously, right? You guys may have seen some of the lawn mowers now, or there's
Hmm.
some autonomous lawn mowers. Obviously, cars. I just recently purchased a Tesla, and that thing has driven me home several times. And so I think our belief is that everything that moves, and we're thinking that it's going to be within 10 years, probably 10 years from now, will be autonomous. But where's the human? Where's the human come in there? The human comes in if the human wants to be a part of that journey, wants to be at the destination wherever wherever that vehicle is going. And so we've positioned ourselves to try to be prescient about that oncoming reality, not knowing exactly when and how that's going to happen, but we're positioning ourselves to be around these enthusiast activities. So whether it is snowmobiling or getting to, a racetrack or getting horses to competitions or getting your I have some friends that they soup up their Jeeps, and they put these big tires on them, and then they head out to Moab, Utah, and they love kind of crawling around on the rocks, and they don't drive there. They tow those
Hmm.
Jeeps there. Those things, I don't even know, some of them aren't even street legal. And
Hmm.
so we've been thinking about, I think that there's going to be this divergence of people who are going to be present in their vehicle, not because they have to operate their vehicle, but because they want to be at the destination of wherever that vehicle is going,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so we've started to think about how we as a technology company can understand kind of the movement of goods and services, can understand, different kind of data points because we see ourselves as really a data company. And so we've worked towards, and we're on the, front end, the learning end of this, but we've loved the way that AI has really revolutionized in our entire world. We strongly believe that startups that bury their head in the sand with AI and tend to have a bit of a techno pessimistic perspective with that, I think are going to lose. And so we've really started to try to lean in and learn. Um, it is a really fast changing world with AI. I mean, it's amazing how quickly these models are getting better and better. But
Hmm.
we believe that any startup at this stage that needs to they really need to lean into AI, and I think if they don't, I think they're going to be on the losing end. So I guess to summarize, John, yeah, I think we really see ourselves as a technology company first and foremost.
Okay. Yeah, it's like a lot of those that are seem to be like just solving a problem, but the reality is, yeah, the solution always involves a lot of programmers and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, something I know nothing about, you know. So I think one of the things that I bring into the table is um, try to identify talent, try to get them in the room, and then have the belief in them and have the trust in them to let them do what they're built to do, and then try to get out of their way. And
Yeah.
that's hard. That's hard. But I
That's
think that's one of what I've been trying to do is identify people who have passion, who have talent, who have skill, and then get out of their way.
it sounds like the typical successful CEO to me. So it's good. It's a good plan.
I'll
Well,
let you know.
yeah, we're gonna run out of time here though. So go through what can a person expect if they just want to try and find this trailer that they need, now or
Sure.
soon. And so what do they do? Where do they go? And they just kind of explain that
Yeah,
to us.
absolutely. So we have not built a mobile app right now. That'll probably happen in the Q2 of 2026 is our anticipation. And so right now, just go to tolos.com, Towlos. We've built the site to be mobile friendly. 92% of our users are on their phones.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the site is works pretty well on your phone. And we now have trailers in I think every state except for Maine, I think. So now, it's these are specialty trailers, right? This is not your kind of your standard utility trailer, although we have quite a few just standard utility trailers, but um, they're dump trailers, they're car haulers, they're enclosed trailers, they're horse trailers, motorcycle trailers. So things that are, would be more considered specialty trailers. And so yeah, it's that easy. And then just type in your city and state just like you would on Airbnb. Um, I'd love for people to go to the website, check it out. I'd love for honest, candid feedback. That's the only way that we grow. And so we have left our egos at home. And so I'd love you can even just email me, Matt@tolos.com, if you have any questions or you have a bit of feedback that's like, hey, this is weird, or have you considered this or that? So we'd welcome your feedback. We'd welcome your comments. But yeah, just tolos.com and it'll take you from there. And you can just rent. The cool thing is you can rent a trailer in your PJs.
Yeah, but they need to know the type of trailer, the size of the trailer, and the dates that they needed. That's kind of what you end up putting
They'll plug
into.
all those in. Yeah.
Yeah,
You can go ahead and you don't have to do all that right at the front. You can just basically type in your city and state, hit the magnifying glass, and it'll show you all the trailers in your area. And then you can always filter down, if you know of a specific trailer, but you could start by just entering your location and take it from there.
that's cool. All right. Anybody, any advice before I let you go for those that are in medicine for 5, 10, 15 years and feel like might want to do something else, but I'm kind of fearful of that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one, I hear you. I think we all have that same fear. I think one thing that I realized is that if you do nothing, you guarantee your outcome,
That's right.
right? Yeah. And so what we don't know is if we do something, we can't guarantee what that is, but I'll tell you, if you do nothing, if you stay and just do exactly what you've been doing, you can guarantee that outcome.
Hmm. All right. Well, this has been fun. I'm gonna have to have you come back when you're, 5, maybe a couple of
I'd
years from
love
now.
to.
See what you're
Thank you.
into then. I'm sure it's
Okay.
going to be looking a lot different as things grow and the business gets bigger and the team gets bigger. That'd be great. All right. Well, thanks for being here, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate it.